Teşekkürler, Rahman. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks everyone for attending this session. I am pleased to be here with you at the Istanbul Java user group. A few words about myself. I am born and I live in Romania. I am currently acting as Java and web technologies expert at Luxoft. So I am a colleague of Rahman from some other location. I have spent more than 20 years in the software industry. More than 15 of them are dedicated to Java and to the technologies around it. I'm also an author at Manning. You have heard about the JUnit in Action book, and I have also authored a few courses at Pluralsight. This session will be about developing Java applications with JUnit 5 and Cucumber. So let's get started to tell you I have already a question. If somebody is asking, Osman is asking me if I'm still teaching Java on Bucharest University. Yes, I am currently conducting a master course. So for the people attending the Polytechnica University Bucharest 5th and 6th year computer science. So going back to developing Java applications with JUnit 5 and Cucumber, we start with raising the problem. We are going to see about a few things about TDD, test-driven development, which is a really fine developing technique. We know about test code refactor cycle. This means that if you would like to write some code, first of all, you will start with writing a test. Why? You should write a test that is supposed to fail, or in other words, if you run it, it should be red. Then you will write possibly the smallest piece of code that will make that test pass, so that you will implement some feature. And then eventually you will refactor, you will improve the quality of your internal code without modifying its external behavior. This is the classical TDD cycle. It is really nice and efficient, but is also providing some limitations. And starting from these limitations, we will try to make the step to behavior-driven development, or BDD. Which are the TDD limitations? First of all, tests are tightly coupled to the implementation. So if you start writing the test, you have to understand in detail what the implementation is about. So you have to have a good and deep understanding of what's inside, or what should be inside. When you write the test, you are focusing on the method or the class that is tested, because you have to keep in mind, I have to test this or that, a method or a class. It's going fine if you think that you are going to do the things right. You have to make sure that your application is bug-free, but the business goals are neglected. As long as you are focused on a unit, on a method, or on a class, or on a few classes, the business goals are neglected, and you risk to lose them from your site. And here we try to make the step towards behavior-driven development. Behavior-driven development has TDD as ancestor. And the guy that first developed this BDD technique, his name is Dan North, started working on a TDD project and moved on the track to BDD. It is a methodology for developing IT solutions that directly satisfy the business needs. So here, we are not only thinking about doing the things right, so you are bug-free, but you're also thinking about doing the right thing. So you would like to directly satisfy the business needs, and to directly address what the user wants. at each step when you write code, you would like your code to directly address some business needs, to add business value to the application. Because otherwise, your application may work wonderful, very good, bug-free, but the features that you're adding may be of little use for the end user of the application. And this is really important to have application that really satisfies the business needs. Also, this BDD technique facilitates the communication between the software developer and the business analyst. They need to communicate somehow. The business analyst has to tell to the developer, you have to do this and that, and the developer has to understand and to put that in practice. And BDD, working with examples and with scenarios, you will see that it addresses these needs and also facilitates this communication inside the projects. In order to demonstrate what BDD is and how it works, and to make the step towards using it with Cucumber, we will have a small flights management application. We have a company that manages some flights and some passengers, and we say here we have flights of two kinds, or of a few kinds. We have economy flights and business flights and maybe some other types of flights, and we have two types of passengers. We have the regular passengers and the VIP passengers. And the company maintains some policies in order to allow passengers to join a flight or to be removed from the flight. And I show here something simple about the policy that is maintained by the company in order to add the passenger to the flight. And we ask ourselves, is the flight economy? Yes, everyone can join the economy flight, and that's absolutely fine. But if the flight is not an economy, there may be some other conditions. We ask ourselves, is the passenger VIP? And only a VIP passenger can join a non-economy flight. In this case, we approve the request. Otherwise, if the passenger is not VIP, we reject the request. And I will move now to the code demonstration. I will start with an application purely tested with JUnit 5. I will explain how it may have some BDD attempts, and we'll make together the step towards introducing Cucumber. So I was saying that we have a passenger that is shaped by the name and by the fact that he or she is VIP or not. And we have a flight abstract class that has these two add passenger and remove passenger abstract methods. And this flight class is extended by business flight, by economy flight, and by premium flight. And at the level of each of these classes, I implemented here the policy, the concrete policy for adding and removing a passenger to that type of flight. Okay. And in order to test the application, I wrote here an airport test class. And if I run it now, I was saying everything is green, but let's have a deeper look at how tests are written. I was saying we have two types of passengers, VIP and regular, and three types of flights, economy, business, and premium. And if we would think in the style of JUnit 4, we may say, let's write 2 multiplied by 3 equals 6 tests to check each of these combinations. And we have the problem solved. But here, making the step to BDD, I am using some of the nice features of JUnit 5. And here inside this airport test, I have an economy flight test class nested. I have a nested business flight test, and I have a nested premium flight test. And inside each of these nested class, I have one more nesting level for regular passenger and for VIP passenger. What is it about with this nested tests? It is similar in concept to the nested classes in Java. In Java, we decide to have a class inside another class when those classes are really tightly coupled. And here, because the tests are really tightly coupled, we go with nested tests. We have them tied together and they may share some resources. For example, this economy flight, these 2 passengers may be shared between the tests. But what is really, really nice here and is in the spirit of behavior-driven development that we would like to put in practice is the usage of this JUnit 5 display name annotation. You see that I added here a display name for the, this nested classes, another display name for this nested class, and a display name for this testing method. What's the advantage of it? If you want to have some really significant method names, you may hard code here, say test economy flight regular passenger, but it is already having a long name. And if I write it this way, test economy flight regular passenger, I still don't know what I'm expecting. I know I'm testing an economy flight together with a regular passenger, but I have no idea about what I am expecting. What's the result? With this nice feature of JUnit 5 put in practice in the idea of BDD, I use here this display name annotation, and I am already using the vocabulary of BDD. And this is shaped by 3 keywords: given, when, and then. What I would like to say, and this is really also beneficial for the communication between the business analyst and the software developer. We want to have some scenarios. Let me show you something more here. You see, I want to introduce here this scenario. Okay, it is for this feature of passengers policy, scenario economy flight regular passenger. Given, it is a precondition, something is given. When, it is an action. The user or the application does something. Then I expect something, some result. And this is in the spirit of behavior-driven development and in the spirit of facilitating the communication between the software developer and the business analyst. What do you have to implement? You have to implement something to directly satisfy the business needs. You have to implement something in behavior-driven development style. I go here back to the application and I run again the test. and you see how nice they look like. I can read them in plain English here. Given there is a premium flight, when we have a VIP passenger, then you can add and remove him from a premium flight, and so on and so on. This is a first taste of behavior-driven development. You can immediately read and understand what the application is about, and even a less technical person will be able to read the scenarios, and you will be guided, driven by what the application needs to do by the behavior. I was saying that we are in the spirit of behavior-driven development, but for the moment, we just used the JUnit 5 features, and especially this nice display name. You can write here anything you would like. You can write even in Turkish. You can use the Turkish diacritics. It will work just fine. But we can do better than this. And in order to do this, let's go and introduce now Cucumber. What is Cucumber? Cucumber is a framework that supports behavior-driven development. And you recognize here something similar to what I was presenting in my previous slide. We have a feature to implement, and in order to make sure this feature is implemented, there are here a few scenarios. How many? 2, 4, 5, 6 scenarios, because I was saying we have 2 types of passengers and 3 types of flights. 2 multiplied by 3 equals 6. And this is a feature file, a Cucumber feature file. Somebody like a business analyst may shape this initially. Say, hey, software developer, this is what the application needs to do. Have a look here. You have to implement this and this and that. Great. What do I need in order to make the step to Cucumber? Of course, I will need to introduce here some dependencies. I introduce here in the application is of course managed by Maven. In this POM XML, I introduce here these 2 Cucumber dependencies. How are we using them? Of course, these classes are looking just the same, like in the previous application that was tested only with JUnit 5. What I care about here is this new test. It is written with Cucumber. You see here some new annotations, given, when, and then. Where do they come from? Of course, they come from Cucumber. And they correspond to what you just saw here, given, when, then. This is a step of the scenario. How does it translate in the code? Of course, it is translated here into a method that is annotated with given, and there is an economy flight just like here. And it is the mission of the developer to translate in code what it means that there is an economy flight. What does it mean that we have a regular passenger? What does it mean that you can add and remove him from an economy flight? Let's run this first Cucumber test. You see, we have all these labels, and we can, just a moment. Let me see the questions now, just a moment. the moment using and I will get back to them immediately using it. Okay, let's see what's here. I can still read really easily these tests. Given there is an economy flight, when we have a regular passenger, then you can add and remove him from an economy flight, and you can do something more. Let's compare it with what was previously shown here. It is looking a little better because we don't have this nesting, but something more that I would like you to notice here. This class has, we are pure JUnit 5 BDD here. This class has 207 lines. If I look here at this passenger policy, I see that it has only 157 lines. So it is about only 75% of the length of the pure JUnit 5 class. Where does this difference come from? Cucumber allows us to go even better, and we remove some code that we really needed to repeat here because we have some Mike and James for here, and we're doing some initialization, and there were some similar steps. But if we go here with pure Cucumber, if I have here given there is an economy flight, and I have here given there is an economy flight, this will translate in one single method. Given there is economy flight, and if I have this step repeated 10 times, I will have only one single method. And you can read everything even easier than with JUnit 5 simulated BDD. Now, there was a question about these steps given when, then, and. You saw them here. We may use this and step as a compound condition. What you have to know is that there is no semantic difference between these annotations given, when, and then. From the point of view of the Cucumber, it is just a step. So it will say, okay, I have this given step. It has its own method, and I have to execute it. It does not care how it is named, but this is significant for the business analyst and for the developer to read here fluently and to fully understand in plain English or in plain Turkish or in plain whatever language you would like, what it is about and what he or she has to implement. Why are we using here this and? Because it is easier for us to read like a compound condition. And when we'll execute this, we'll have a then step and an and step, and they will look much the same. So we are using here then, but it's similar. It is a compound then here. And it will be something verified here at this step, and here another assertion, compound assertion, still here. So we have to check this step and this step corresponding to the ones from here. You may say that we have some separate assertions for each then. One more thing that I would like to emphasize here, because you wrote there in the chat about multiple assertions. Let's have a look at this assert all method. This is a really nice JUnit 5 feature. Why am I using it, and I recommend it to use. You may have situations when you would like to verify multiple things. If you have an assert equals after an assert equals after an assert equals, sometimes you have really to check more than one condition. This may not be very good practice. Why? Because in the absence of this assert all, if assert equals number one fails, then the other ones will no longer be checked. But if I use this assert all method provided by JUnit 5, then it will execute this full bunch of assertions. Even if this one fails, you will have these ones checked, and you will say, oh, this one fails, first one and fourth one are failing, but the other ones are really working fine. This is an advantage. You will see everything at a glance. And if we talk about assert, multiple assertions, I wanted to emphasize the usage of assert all, which is a nice JUnit 5 feature. Let me see what we have here. Okay. Let me see. I still have one recent question, but there was some older question. What is inside Cucumber test class? This is something that I wanted to share with you, of course, because I was running this Cucumber test. This is something very simple, but it is like a template. We say that we are running this test, and where should the Cucumber look for the features? This is a feature file in the terminology of Cucumber. It should look on the class path and on the features folder. And how should you display? Pretty means that you should display something really readable, and Cucumber will take care of this, of displaying the results of the test. So this is something very simple, and it acts as an entry point for running the whole suite of tests. It does not have to be large. It does not have to have this Cucumber test name. I just chose it for convenience, but it has to be instructed where to look for the features and for the test to execute. Have here two more questions from Faretin. Can Cucumber do reverse engineering like given a test class and produce scenario? From my knowledge, the current Cucumber plugin, I was going to talk about plugin cannot do this. So I will show how the plugin, the IntelliJ plugin, can take the feature file and produce a skeleton of the output. Just give me a few more minutes and I will go back to this. And another question is about can Cucumber use only JUnit 5 or can we use JUnit 4? Cucumber can use JUnit 4, Cucumber can use TestNG, because as a behavior-driven development, it comes on top of this unit testing. What's the combination here between Cucumber as a framework, as a BDD framework, and JUnit 5 as a unit testing framework? Cucumber has these annotations, but when you do some assertions or some other operations, you may choose your framework. I will strongly recommend, of course, JUnit 5. But if you have some older tests, you can do them with JUnit 4. Cucumber will just execute this then step and will make the assertions according to what was there, JUnit 4, JUnit 5, TestNG. So no problem about the underlying unit testing framework that you are using. Let me see if there is something more here in the chat. I will go up 1 minute, please, to see if I. Okay. I was talking about the Cucumber plugin and about its nice possibilities. Here, if I go here to plugin, you will see that I installed here something. When I type here Cucumber, you will see that this gherkin is installed. So what's gherkin and what's its connection with Cucumber? Cucumber is the framework. Gherkin is just the language that describes the scenarios. And when I installed here Gherkin, I was getting some really nice features. Let's make here some test. I will remove this given annotated method. If I execute now Cucumber test, meantime, I have a question if there is a plan for Cucumber for .NET Core C#. I'm not sure. Cucumber is a more general behavior-driven development framework. It is available for Java. It is available for some other languages, but not sure about the plans for C#. I go back here. You see, I removed this given annotated method, and of course, it failed. But what's really nice is that I am provided here the suggestion about what I am missing. Say, hey, you need this given annotated method with this signature. Will you please take it and make it work? So it immediately saw that it is missing a step, and it provided some suggestion for it. I have a question and I will go back to it. What's also nice from the side of the Cucumber plugin is here that you are highlighted the missing steps. The plugin will immediately see it. And I can do something more. I can directly run this passenger policy, and I am provided the missing step. So imagine that we were not having this passenger policy here. It was not no code at all. You were able to execute this feature and to have the skeleton of the methods that need to be implemented. And once you have already implemented them, you may quickly run directly this feature file. And you see, you will immediately get feedback, 6 scenarios, 22 steps. Even if somebody is a less technical person, he or she will be able to quickly execute this. What did we need to do in order to execute this feature? We needed to make here some configuration, Cucumber Java. This is the main Cucumber class. This is the BDD airport is in fact this package, and the feature or folder path where you had to look for this, meaning here, feature folder. Let me see what questions. Is Cucumber used only for unit testing, or can we use it for integration testing as well? There is here to define what is called a testing pyramid. Cucumber, in fact, is not used here for unit testing. If you imagine a pyramid, at the base level of this pyramid, we have the unit testing. You care about the methods and the classes in order to run fine. When we talk about integration testing, this is one level up. So now you care about more classes working together or about more packages working together. They have to integrate, they have to work together really nicely, because if they work only solely in isolation, this will not help us. And here, Cucumber and behavior-driven development is not at the level of unit testing, is not at the level of integration testing, but is at a higher level in this pyramid. It is at the level of what is called user acceptance testing. So what you would like to make sure is that your application is satisfying the user needs, that your application is satisfying, is accepted by the user. And this comes on top of unit testing and integration testing. It's one level upper. So Cucumber, you will use Cucumber or some other behavior-driven development tool when you would like to make sure that you are satisfying the user needs, and this is at the very top of the test pyramid that I was talking about. Here, another question from Osman. I was thinking Cucumber will generate missing method if it is defined on feature. Yes, you saw. Let me show again. So if it is not defined here, and I run this, Cucumber is generating not the method, but the method signature. This one. Of course, it is your mission as a developer to write the logic from here, but Cucumber will generate this missing method signature. Let me go back here, and I will have another look at the questions. Can we apply BDD approach to performance testing? Yes. Performance testing is, of course, really important. You are expecting here something to be executed to get the answer in some time interval. You may write a scenario, and I will immediately show how we can parameterize our tests, so that you say, I want this execution, and this execution needs to be done within this interval of time. Let's imagine a scenario. You have a card, and you go to the ATM and press this, and you expect the answer to be done within some time interval. So here you are combining the BDD and the scenarios. I have a card, I introduce it, I press, I'm expecting this with the performance expectations. But you have to define your scenarios so that they touch this performance idea. Let me, okay. We are expecting analysts to write cucumber test cases, but analyst does not know the details behind it, so his steps offered may give additional effort to developers. This may cause that step might have to be changed or discarded. How can we stop this happen? From the point of view of the analyst should describe how the application works, how the application interacts with the user. What should I think about when I read here? His steps offered may give additional effort to developers. If this is a requirement for the application to do this and that, it has to be implemented. I was defining that scenario. I have a card, I go there and I go there. The business analyst makes the connection between the end user, the customer, and the developer. So if it brings some additional effort to the developers, that's it. I think the application should satisfy the user needs, and what is behind the implementation of some step and which effort it requires, this may be something separate. Is it possible in practice to ask the business analysts write the feature files? Assuming they can write those documents, how can we sync the files between their requirements and the files in the repo? In general, these feature files are written by business analysts because this is something less technical here, as you see. Even you have no idea about Java or about what programming is, you will be able to understand what this means. What generally happens is that business analysts write these things and they are pushed in the repository. They become input for the developer. So you will get these things as specifications, and these feature files, we may say that they are entirely part of the application specifications and documentation. So you just push them and you have them as input for your implementation. Let me see. Combination of Cucumber plus JUnit plus Selenium for test is recommended or not? I would go for a separation here because Cucumber is meant in general to test the business logic, while Selenium is also a behavior-driven, maybe regarded as a behavior-driven development framework, but it tests the interaction with some front end, with some browser. In Selenium, you may specify, I open this website, I press on this button, I wait for this in time interval, and I expect this to happen. So I would separate this. I would definitely I will use Selenium if you would like to interact with some front end in browser. The fact, somebody says here, the fact that business analysts don't have repo access has been a problem for us. They should provide somehow these features. This is at the level of the organization, at the policy inside. the project. If they can push them directly there, okay. Otherwise, they may provide these feature files to you. This is something that should be fixed at the level of the project. Let me see one moment if I didn't miss anything here. Okay, let me go further. We still have some nice features in Cucumber to discover. And I was talking about parameterized tests. There are many situations when you would like to have your test to have some input and to verify some expectations against an expected output. And Cucumber provides this nice feature. Just it does not call this one scenario, but scenario outline. And here say scenario outline given when then. And here we have a bunch of examples. You see that I have here when, and this step has 3 parameters. Just a moment. I will interrupt because I am asked about Sikuli and Cucumber integration difference. And I'm sorry, but I haven't worked with Sikuli, and so I cannot provide a documented answer. That's it. Going back here, we're saying that we have this parameterized test with mileage 1, mileage 2, mileage 3. And then I expect some output in quantity. And these steps are translated in this table. We have 5 examples here, a table with 5 lines saying have mileage 1 and mileage 2 and mileage 3 as input, and you expect these points. How does such a scenario looks like in code? This is a parameterized method. You see here that it has 1, 2, 3 parameters that are corresponding here to mileage 1, mileage 2, and mileage 3. And in the annotation, they are defined by this regular expression. \D plus means an integer. And Cucumber will know, okay, this is a method annotated with this when with 3 parameters. So it will look for these 3 parameters. It will take them from here, and it will execute the method. Then it has one integer parameter. It is here as also in the then annotated method. It is expecting an integer. Let's see how this test looks like. I am re-executing here Cucumber test. I will look not at the passenger's policy, but at this parameterized. You see that it is executing for each line here. For each line here, it is executing given, when, then. For the second line here, it is executing given, when, then, and so on. You will have everything at a glance. And writing parameterized tests is really straightforward, and business analysts will be able to easily specify what they expect from the application to execute, to provide. I think we are close to the end of our demonstrations. So remember, we started from an application that was using only JUnit 5, and we tried to simulate behavior-driven development with the help of the nested test and display name annotation. We moved to Cucumber by introducing the feature files, by transposing in code those given when then steps, by executing the tests with the help of the plugin. And then we introduced this parameterized test. So this is also a really nice feature. I see that something is written in the chat. Yes, so we still have a question here about examples. Can we give these examples, parameters, mileage, 1, 2, 3 endpoints from a CSV or XLS file? Yes, you may come here and specify the input as here. Instead of writing mileage 1, you say the name of the file, CSV or XLS, and you provide your expectations. The input will not be this 349, but it will be the name of the file. Is there any roadmap for writing BDD tests for legacy applications? Let me think about this. Legacy applications in many cases didn't start with the business needs and the user needs in mind. As long as the application evolved and it was implemented, you have some documentation, you have some understanding at least of the application. You may try to transpose this understanding of what the application needs to do in BDD. For example, if it was manually tested, you may have some use cases, because testers often write these use cases. You may take these use cases and you may transpose them in behavior-driven development scenarios, and you will slowly replace, you will try to slowly replace this manual testing with behavior-driven development annotated testing. I'm still waiting for 1 more minute for if there are more questions. I would like to just to tell you, because I was saying that I authored this JUnit in Action 3rd edition book. It has been published November 2020, so less than half a year ago. It is approaching, of course, JUnit 5 first of all, and its nice features. It is talking about migrating from JUnit 4 to JUnit 5, about behavior-driven development, about Cucumber, about JBehave, which is also a behavior-driven development framework, about test-driven development, includes topics about mocking, about Selenium, because you asked about Selenium, and last but not least, about that testing pyramid that I talked about a little earlier when you asked about unit testing and integration testing. And there are also some courses that I authored here at Pluralsight. Some of them are related to automated testing. You see here JUnit TDD with JUnit 5, BDD fundamentals. This is related to Cucumber. Implementing a test pyramid strategy in Java. This is exactly what I was talking about. Migrating from JUnit 4 to the JUnit 5 testing platform. So these are a few more things that I can tell you about. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank you so much for your presence here, for your attention, for your interest. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.